Coogs House. While the Houston Cougars are busy with the Sweet 16 and getting ready for Duke, other college basketball programs are building out their rosters with the transfer portal. Should they be allowed to do that?
You are Locked On Cougs, your daily podcast on the Houston Cougars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Cougs, daily podcast about your Houston Cougars. I'm your host, Houston-born teacher and coach Parker Ainsworth, and whether you're a Houston fan or just a hater who came to step by, thank you for making Locked On Cougs your first listen of the day. And if you want to join the conversation but don't know what to say, tell us down below if you or a loved one threw a Sweet 16 party. Because growing up, that was not a thing we did, not in the birthday sense. Anyway, now, Houston Cougars are very actively involved in playing basketball right now. Only 16 major programs, or I guess there's also the NIT and the CBI, but work with me here. 16 teams are. And transfer stuff's been going crazy. I want to talk about some of the best players available out there. I want to talk about some of the best fits from the state of Texas, the guys that you could get to stay home or play for the best program in Texas. But first, I do want to take a minute to talk some about should any of this even be allowed to happen while March Madness is still going on. The March Madness Selection Sunday kind of kicks off the whole deal. It's the day after the Big 12 tournament. There's still some conference tournaments as of that day, that Sunday. And transfer portal window opens 24 hours afterwards, meaning the ink isn't even dried from the paper that morning that you did fill out your bracket. Or at least as a kid, we'd be fighting over who got the big newspaper copy. You take over the big one and get to do the full thing on the kitchen table, right? The ink from that bracket would not be dry by the time you're talking about guys putting their name in the transfer portal. For what it's worth, that ends on May 1st. That's about 6 weeks, give or take. NBA draft early entry deadline is April 27th this year, so a little bit less than a week after that, between that and the end of the transfer portal. Withdrawing from the NBA draft, if you were trying to pull your name out like some guys will do, frankly, like some Houston Cougars will do every year, it feels like, is actually the end of May 29th. I don't feel like this current transfer thing is sustainable. I advocate and I'm a fan of guys getting a say in where they play and finding a spot that's best for them. You only have theoretically 4 years of college basketball, and you need to find the situation that's best for you. And I sympathize and want to see players do that to the best of their ability. But this current deal we've got going here, where you've got by the Sweet 16, literally thousands of players, like over 2,000 players. There are less than 5,000 in Division I college basketball, right? Over 2,000 players are in the transfer portal. While the best programs, in theory, Houston's still playing, Purdue is still playing, UConn is still playing, while they are busy playing their most important games of the year. And I know that there is active recruiting throughout the year. And I guess maybe this is just the morphing of that. Like, instead of actively recruiting class of 2025 kids while coaching big time games, you're now actively recruiting transfer kids or whatever. And who goes where is different. But I do feel like this thing happening simultaneously with the tournament is ultimately a bad call, right? This idea that the 68 teams that made the tournament have a week delayed start on guys from, in this year, like Michigan, right? Handful of Big 12 programs, Oklahoma, stuff like that, that didn't make the big dance. Those schools are going to lose their guys faster because they want to hit and get out, because they don't want to wait till March Madness is over. They want to hear what you have to say. But they also are going to talk to whoever's freest first and find a landing spot. They want to find a good landing spot too, but they also need to find a landing spot. And those landing spots that are going to open up are not likely going to be these schools that are busy playing games. That's just too many plates juggling in the air. That's not quite the best way to do that. for what it's worth, of the top 200 rated on a consensus, where all the different things are averaged out, only a half dozen have committed presently. Interestingly, 2 of those 6 have committed to Sweet 16 teams. Interesting look there, right? Interesting look. And if we're looking at like the fact that transfers are just kind of the way of the future, of the 15 people that made the 3 AP All-American teams, 10 of the 15 had transferred, 2 on the first team, 3 on the second team, and all 5 on the third team. Obviously, Jamal Shedd was on the first team, and he was not a transfer, right? But Dalton Connect, Houston actually played when he was at Colorado. He was first team All-American at Tennessee, and then RJ Davis at Carolina's transfer as well. And those are in your first team. I look at this and look at my notes here and just don't understand logistically what the fix is, but I don't think this present scenario works. I don't know what the fix is because, frankly, if you were to say the transfer portal window doesn't open until 24 hours after the championship game, right? Everyone gets to play the game, let the confetti fall, party all night, sleep in a little bit, go on and start recruiting, right? Whatever, right? You'd have to find a way to bump back the windows with the NBA and all the other things as well to kind of give kids that same amount of time to do this the right way. I don't think it'd be fair to cut that time down. I don't think that's right either, right? I think that if that's for whatever reason the determined amount of time it takes to go through this process, I think they should be entitled to have that much time. I don't know what the data there is. It just kind of feels arbitrary, but I assume there was some rationale behind it being specifically those dates. So if you want to go like April 9th through May 30th or something, then so be it. I also wonder if you opened up in that sense when you started having people officially able to talk on the day after the championship game, would you suddenly have a lot of unregulated, unofficial, for lack of a better term, less than legal conversations happening behind the scenes, right? Because truthfully, those kids on Michigan, those kids in Oklahoma would be sitting at home not doing anything, right? And they're sitting at home not doing anything. Like, what am I going to do here? And then they get the call from so-and-so, hey, you need to answer the next phone call. You get like all those different secret behind the scenes kind of things could be happening in a way that's less regulated. And maybe that's the answer. It's like, well, duh, Parker, if we do it this way, we can at least have some more say in how it works, make sure it fits within the rules. I will say that I feel like a big factor in major programs turning down the NIT is they got to get started on building their next season's roster in the modern way that we do college basketball. And if there was some delay in when you could start building out that roster, maybe you'd see some of these programs joining up in the NIT. I know that that's not really Houston's problems these days, but as a whole, I feel really bad for those seniors or veterans in a program that arbitrarily have their season cut short instead of getting to play in a postseason tournament because their coach sees the NIT as a disappointment. That doesn't feel right. That feels like very not college basketball to me. And maybe if those coaches didn't have to worry about their roster, you could find some way like they wouldn't have that thing to be doing, right? Whereas like a coach could reasonably say, now I can't worry about the NIT. I got to go recruit and make sure I keep my guys and like all those kinds of things and nuances. And I guess that makes some sense. I just don't think it's right that all this is happening this way, where Houston's got a great roster coming back from next year. I'm not worried about it. Adding Mercy is going to be awesome. Chase is going to be awesome. Cordell, when he comes off the register, is going to be awesome. McFarland's put on great weight. Great young guys coming back. I mean, JVA should be a beast down low in his next year in the program. I think Sharp should be back. I think Arsenault should be back, mostly healthy. Right. I think like the roster looks great and I'm not worried about it. But in theory, I do think that there's something wrong with that. And I worry about this continuing to spiral out of control. The transfer thing has gotten somewhat out of control. It hadn't hit Houston as hard as the other programs because the culture Samson's built just wouldn't let it. But I do think if we're having a conversation about basketball and transfers in the bigger picture, March Madness mid-tournament transfers is a weird thing that we probably need to make sure isn't quite able to happen. Now, I want to talk about some guys that are in that portal because whenever it's time to talk, I think Houston's got some guys they could add to make the roster even better next year. I want to talk about those guys that are from the state of Texas first. But first, I want to talk about one of our newer buddies here, and that is Better Together. And you can download the app from whatever store and be running all kinds of contests throughout the March Madness tournament, but it's all kinds of different daily fantasy type of games and picks with your buddies. It's a great combination of like a social media interaction with your friends while also competing and seeing who makes the better plays throughout the day. Now, if you want to, put your buddies in a group chat, you can do it there. If you want to make a bunch of picks with your friends, you can pick it there. You can do all kinds of different things. If your bracket's already busted or you're tired of the same old-fashioned daily fantasy grind, this is where you can have a more fun, more modern, new experience with the Better Together daily fantasy platform. You pick more or less than a bunch of different statistical categories. Your buddies in the group do as well. And at the end of the day, someone wins. Now, if you listen to the show, you know that the Cougs always do more, and keep the other team to less. But that's neither here nor there. That's just my 2 cents. You can download Better Together right now from the App Store and sign up using promo code LOCKEDON, LOCKEDON, for a free $5 entry into any NCAA basketball contest. Remember the code LOCKEDON because winning alone is fun, but it's better together. All right, the second buddy I continue to plug during March Madness is one of my favorites because it's constantly going on the side of my house. It's where I watch all my basketball. It's Fire TV. It's your destination for sports, from live games to highlights to in-depth analysis. Fire TV offers amazing viewing experiences with smart TVs as well as a Fire Stick that you can plug into your existing TV. It provides access to millions of movies and TV episodes as well as free and live TV, whether it's opening weekend for baseball or the college basketball tournament. You're going to want to have a Fire TV. Whether Fire TV has recently created Fire TV channels to deliver a constant supply of the latest videos from your favorite sports brands, all for free. That includes all of us here at Locked On. Yes, all of us. And most of the big pro leagues and college conferences as well. Fire TV channels lets you dive into all of the game analysis, highlights, and more to keep you up to date on the latest in the world of sports, March Madness, the NBA, MLB, and lots more. Not to mention great news, entertainment, gaming, travel, cooking videos as well. Check out Fire TV and Fire TV Alexa devices. If you haven't checked out Fire TV channels, you should. Trust me on this. It's running at my house pretty much 24/7. To learn more, visit Amazon.com/LockedOnFire TV. All right, so I said in the second segment, I'll run through a handful of guys that are from Texas that are particularly unique fits or uniquely good fits from Texas that are currently in the transfer portal. And I think there's a couple positions to really pay attention to, that forward/center spot, and then because I think Jamal Shedd's a pro, the point guard spot. And I look at guys at mostly those two spots and doing my research for this. Obviously, as the roster continues to fill out, we're looking at guys once we know who's going pro, who's staying, who's on first, who's taking graduation and going into the real world, whatever. We'll be looking at all those things. But right now, those are the two spots I'm looking. Amari Abram was the first guy I found that really jumped off the screen when we watch his Ole Miss tape. Now, Amari Abram is a 6'4" combo guard, meaning played some point and some two guard from Humboldt, Texas. High school class 2022. He's got 2 years of college eligibility left, I believe, if I'm reading things correctly. He started off at Ole Miss, had a great freshman year, transferred to Georgia Tech, and had less success. That freshman year at Ole Miss is still very promising. Something was not quite right at Georgia Tech. I don't mean to belittle other programs or whatever, but with the coaching change at Ole Miss, I think that he wanted something fresh and didn't quite get it there. I feel like that makes him feel Malik Wilson-like to me, in the sense he's still good player, good start to college career, trying to find a new home. He attacks the rim. He scores a lot of points. When he's at Ole Miss, he did anyway. He shot 36% from three at Ole Miss and just 20% from three at Georgia Tech. Not a whole lot of minutes to watch ranking the Georgia Tech stuff, but I do feel like it looked like they weren't getting him the same kinds of looks. He was a lot more active in the pick and roll and a lot more decisive in running the offense as a combo guard at Ole Miss, not getting the same kinds of looks at Georgia Tech, and probably why he's in the transfer portal, but also I think why so many of his raw stats, the scoring and stuff like that, all took a real dip. That Ole Miss version of Amari Abram, though, could be an all Big 12 caliber player. Really, really talented offensive guy. Good enough, better than Cryer coming in defensively. And we've seen the growth Cryer's had this season. I mean, Cryer's a good defender now, where I would have probably been critical of him at Baylor. I'd say Amari Abram probably comes in at a higher level than Cryer came in at. And so I feel like that same growth we saw in Cryer is evidence of like the growth we'll see in Amari. Other point guard I looked at is Jordan Ivy Curry from the Mark. He's an interesting story in that he spent 2 years at UTSA, went to Pacific College out west for it's like I want to say Stockton, and then Stockton, and then came back to USA for his senior season last year. But he actually has a year of eligibility because he was on the UTSA team during the COVID year. He started half of his freshman year and most of his sophomore year. Coaching change. And then he went to Pacific trying to get to play more, but didn't get to play a lot. And he's barely gotten to play at all this past season. Does have that 1 year of does have that 1 year of eligibility left. I said he didn't start at UTSA. I should point out that he is getting like a ton of points off the bench for them. And shooting almost 39% from three. He had 38 points against Florida Atlantic and 33 versus SMU, so he can score in bunches. And again, a guy that may be more of a project defensively for what Houston does, because Houston relies so much on a defensive-heavy point guard. But he definitely has leadership, definitely has experience. And if you trust some of your other guards, your Cryers or your Sharps or whatever, to kind of steer the ship, as far as being that lead defensive dog, and I think Sharp can do it. Maybe you can get away with that with what he's doing. Last but not least, the guard I'm looking at for my other guard spot is Justin Porter from Middle Tennessee State. He actually went to Cypress Ridge High School. 2020 graduate, went to Tyler Junior College for, I believe, 2 years, and now has spent 2 years at Middle Tennessee. 13.9 points per game, 33.5% from three, 2 assists per game. But what sticks about watching him on the screen, TV, YouTube, or Amazon Fire TV, he's like a 6'1", well-built, but I wouldn't say like gigantic, yacked-out kid, but he plays super tough, on the floor, energy, like cheering up his teammates, pumping up the guys. I mean, he is the kind of guy that appears to be, you want to have on your roster in your locker room. If anything, right, if Houston's roster is so good next year that you're adding guys to just kind of plug in gaps and fill out depth for whatever, that strikes me as the kind of thing they would make sure you have. Again, he's a local kid, be coming back home, be a great story, but I also think that he fits because of the kinds of things he's doing, the kind of energy plays he's making. I think he fits what Houston does. The big from the area that I think we're all talking about right now in circles on social media to look at is Keanu Dawes. He went to Stratford High School and then obviously went to Rice. Rice has completely stripped down, is going to rebuild their program. Looks like a bunch of guys in the transfer portal, brought a new coach, et cetera, et cetera. Houston did offer Dawes out of high school, but he clearly wanted to stay home, but went to Rice. This year, Rice had 6.5 points per game and 4 rebounds per game. He had 7 and 5 for what it's worth against Houston when they played each other this year. But he was a 4-star high school kid, is a Houstonian kid that wants to stay home. And if I key in on the high school tape, I think he does fit the Houston Cougar mold in a lot of ways. As a big, good roll man, soft hands, long arm, like a lot of different things that track with being a Houston Cougar big to me. And then obviously I would trust anyone developing on their offensive side with the big men, with Kellen Sampson, who does work with the bigs at practice, right? And so I'm really, really impressed by that guy's high school tape, and I'd love to see him stay in Houston for even longer and come across to the U of H. Now, obviously, the city of Houston's got some of the best high school basketball in America. no contest. But there are lots of other guys in the transfer portal, and a lot of guys we got to talk about in a second as well. But first, we got to talk about what's going on here in March Madness, because right now, every week we're giving you March Madness bracket highlights brought to you by our friends at Nissan. And this week we're picking a team that stands out, a team that's pushed it farther than the rest. And just like all of these 2024 Nissan SUVs, these guys were able to take it to the next level. That's fellow one seed North Carolina Tar Heels. They can only be described as an armada. This one seed is hardcore as it gets out there, so no wonder they secured a spot in the Sweet 16 Thursday against Alabama in the NCAA tournament. They're a favorite to be picked by many to make a run to the championship game. They got a great path for themselves set up. And if you want to take a great path as well, you can take the Nissan Rogue, Pathfinder, or Armada and go find your next big adventure and shop NissanUSA.com. Now, if you have passion, drive, and patience, you want to bring home the winning trophy, and you know that you got to keep that ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level up to peak performance, from superchargers to roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered with 122 million parts for your number one ride or die. You'll always find exactly what you're looking for, and with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time, or your money back, because eBay Motors, you're burning rubber and not cash. All the parts you need and the prices you want. It's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. AB Guaranteed Fit is only available to U.S. customers. All right. So I'm most intrigued in the transfer portal by a kid named Malik Mack. Malik Mack is a 6'1" point guard from DC. He was class of 2023 at a high school. He was the Washington, D.C. Gatorade Player of the Year. He's a shifty, strong, left-handed kid, got really long arms and uses all that length to do a bunch of crafty finishes while his strong frame takes the contact around the rim. Averaged 17 points a game last year, 4-point assists, and 4 rebounds. Had 27, 3, and 4 against Indiana, 36, 6, and 2 against UMass. Oh, and did I mention he went to Harvard? The kid was the best player in the city of DC, this kind of athlete, this kind of talent, and spent his first year of college at Harvard. Now, I understand that's unique, and if you follow me on Twitter, I've been plugging the Ivy League. Actually had pretty strong hoops this season, from Princeton to Yale, Harvard, right, etc. But I think he's looking to obviously get to a bigger basketball program. Now he's had a year of playing under his belt. 17 points a game in the Ivy League is nothing to sneeze at. Again, Ivy League, Yale took out Auburn. I mean, this is a league that puts out a little more basketball talent, I think, than we realized in the past. And he is a big-time college basketball player, rated as a 4-star transfer on the two sites that got pulled up, and then they both have the consensus on the side. It's a 4-star caliber transfer guy, 6'1", that long arm, a wingspan just strikes me as a great fit for what we're trying to do in getting passing lanes. And he is a crazy good athlete, crazy good athlete. He's not the only guard I looked at nationally, not from the greater Texas or Houston area. Texas or greater Houston area. Sorry, I had that backwards. But I think he is one to keep an eye on, because, frankly, he's going to shift and make whatever roster he ends up on a lot better. The other guy is a more interesting story, actually. If it's possibly a more interesting story than a best basketball player in your state or district going to Harvard, that is Doug McDaniel. And Doug McDaniel is a 5'11" point guard at Michigan, entering his third year at college. Had 16.3 points per game, 4.7 assists last year, 3.7 rebounds. Had 33 at Oregon, 33 at Oregon, 33 at Florida, and had 26, 7, and 6 against St. John's. Really talented player, right? He ended the year this year, per Michigan, suspended for road games to get on top of his academics while the team was away. Now, That sounds like a load of bogus. I don't know what that is. This is not Locked on Michigan. I did not dive super deep into that. That's all I can really find at a surface level. If someone's in knowing, if someone knows someone who knows someone who knows someone and that can tell us something, tell us in the comments down below. But if he's got that stuff, whatever it was, if it's academics, the academics, if it's trouble on the road, if he's got whatever the deal is figured out that led to Juwan Howard costing his job potentially and keeping a 16 point per game score at home and not taking him on the road with them. If they've got that figured out for Doug McDaniel, he's a can't miss guy on the floor. On the floor, he is as perfect a Jamal Shead replacement as there is in college basketball, right? I know it's impossible to actually replace Jamal Shead. I'm not saying he is one-to-one the same guy. But as far as like finding the best caliber replacement, he's going to be really good at it, right? Tough, hard-nosed, defensive-minded player that gets you 16 points, 3 points per game and 4.7 assists, right? Like just controls and dictates the game in a lot of different ways. Yes, that makes it a little bit weirder. They decided to play the road games without him for whatever he had to focus on that they said was academic, so I'm going to buy it. And yes, you want to make sure that those kinds of things are fixed. Whatever issues there were things he had to catch on. You want to make sure those things are fixed before ultimately offering him a scholarship, right? Because you don't want to hear it, off the court issues if that's, if they're not saying, or you want to make sure that he can stay eligible to be on the floor if he shows up or whatever, right? But I will say that it's worth the deep dive to make sure that those things are fixed because man, oh man, he can hoop, right? Speaking of he can hoop, guy that I was impressed with that I didn't know was going to be transferring, although that it makes sense because Oklahoma State's changing coaches, is Brandon Garrison. Brandon Garrison's a 6'11 Oklahoma State freshman. He's from Del City, Oklahoma. He could have gone anywhere he wanted in America. He chose Oklahoma State because it was close to home. And at 6'11, he's entered the transfer portal. And frankly, he's a very Houston Cougar prototype big guy. Now, where like Jalen Roberts has like the left hook he relies on when he can't get a layup or a dunk. Brandon Garrison's got more of a 6-foot jumper. He's got a decent jumper from inside that 6 to 8 foot range. And at 6'11 with long arms, he shoots over the top of defenses and no one can do anything about it. He was also McDonald's All-American, highly touted recruit out of high school. Again, he went to Oklahoma State, not because it was only offer by any stretch. He could have gone anywhere he wanted, but it was close to home. Now, Houston's obviously not like that close, but it's not that far. Big 12 conference play there every year, whatever it is. And, conference tournaments just up the road in Kansas City. I think there's a lot of reasons that Houston would be a great fit, but he's also the kind of guy that's going to have the entire country looking for him in the transfer portal. We'll see where he goes. Again, I did see, I think it was Tobias Bass on Twitter say that he's already got contact with someone on the Houston staff, so I know they're looking at him. He is a perfect big man fit in every way. If you'll notice, in both Houston area guys and national guys, I looked at more guards than bigs. I think Jamal Shead is a pro. I think there's a shot that Cryer goes, but I bet Cryer comes back. I think as far as taking the COVID year and being a super senior and coming back, you'll see more big guys at Houston's roster do that just because Houston's big guys are very particular to how Houston plays defense, what Houston needs on offense, etc. The NBA does some different things. So, like, you may see Roberts come back and continue to work on his outside jump shot. You may see, I don't know, Dunn. I think Dunn's got another year if he wants it, right? You may see other guys come back and work on some different things. But the guards, I think the Houston's guards are good enough to actually go pro. And so that's why I hedged on looking at a lot more guards. If you think I'm crazy for that, you can tell me in the comments down below. But I want to say thank you so much for tuning in and making Locked on Cougs your first listen of the day. Appreciate you making us your first listen of the day every day here at Locked on Cougs. Remember, we're doing a giveaway every 500 subscribers. We're just over 2,100, like 2,115 or something like that. Hit subscribe. Let's get to the next mark so we can give something away. And tell us in the comments something like down below that way and get you in that contest. Someone who's liking and commenting on the videos. Like Locked on Cougs is proud member of the Locked on Podcast Network. That means your team, our Houston Cougars, are number one Sweet 16 bound, too busy playing to do a whole lot of trouble recruiting Houston Cougars each and every day. Go Cougs.